And welcome everyone once again to this podcast session. So, just like Mr. Israel has said, so we'll be looking at the topic that please confirm if I'm audible, please. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly. You don't have any issue.
All right, okay. Yeah, Israel, please, you can help attend to the guy that is joining. So, all right. So, why let's dive into what we are here to do for today. So, I believe at least for anyone that joined this session, definitely you've had one or two things to do with in cyber. Maybe you are curious, or you are already on your journey in cybersecurity, or you're about to begin, or whichever one you want to do. So, today the topic we are discussing actually is I will define it as the benchmark of cybersecurity, right? So, but to start with, I have a question just to ask. So, what comes to mind when you hear the word cybersecurity? I just want to know. Like anybody can actually raise. You can raise your hand if you just want to. Just a quick one. So, so we'll be fast and listen. Anyone can just raise your hand. Just what exactly comes to your mind when you hear the word cybersecurity?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, good evening.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, once I hear cybersecurity, the first thing that comes to my mind is threat actor attack, a kind of battle between threat actors and then people trying to protect the cyberspace. So that's what usually comes to my mind. I used to see cybersecurity as a kind of a war between cyber criminals and then the defenders of the web. That's how I see it.
All right. That's nice. That's very nice. I love that ideology. That's very nice. Okay. So without wasting much time, is let me. So people, I know, from a couple of. Sorry, can you mute? Who is somebody is not muted, please? I think it's that. Okay. Thank you. So from my own experience, right, when I've interacted with people, especially trying to get people actually trying to find informations or asking us that are already inside into the field how they can break in and all those stuff. And when you start interacting with these guys, you will discover that their whole mindset about cybersecurity is about hacking. Probably they have watched all these movies where they see, oh my, yeah, this guy just pressed this thing and this thing and this thing happened, and they think that it is easy that way. But whereas what they don't understand is cybersecurity is actually about protecting information, just like what my guy already said, right? Information and systems. And that is exactly where the CIA triad comes in. You get. So without wasting much time, let's dive in, let's go deep into it, right? Okay. So what is exactly the CIA triad, right? So this is a model in cybersecurity. It's a model in cybersecurity that, in fact, summarizes or benches anything that you can think of in cybersecurity, benches on this CIA triad. This is more like let me use the word, the foundation of everything. So talk about security, talk about cybersecurity, any part of cybersecurity, CIA triad is there. That is, in fact, that is the foundation that they all operate on. So just like you see here, so the CIA triad is a model used in cybersecurity to guide how systems, applications, and data should be protected. So it's not. I know that when you talk about CIA triad, there is another one for the American one, their agency on Central Intelligence Agency. That's not the one we're talking about. We're talking about the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability. These are the three core principles that exist whenever you talk about cybersecurity, right? So if any of these three should fail, if any of these three is compromised, that means there is a security flaw. Some security has been compromised. So each of them is the bench. Each of them is the part that make up all these things you hear about cybersecurity. Okay. So now let's look at the first one, which is confidentiality. So what is confidentiality actually? So you've on a simple term, on a simple term with let me say the dictionary definition, confidentiality is just making something to be probably personalized to you, or being I'm trying to another word for that confusion. Just that information is only accessed by the right individual that's supposed to access it. So it is the person that has access to that thing that is supposed to be access it, right? So but someone that is unauthorized can actually have access to it, that same thing. That's because there has been something, let me say something like a data breach or something like that, right? So whenever you hear about confidentiality in cybersecurity, it simply means that it is only something, maybe a device can only be accessed or an information can only be accessed by the right individual. Anything that has to do with someone that is not authorized accessing that information means that confidentiality policy has been broken. So you have a real world examples where you have stuff like on your phone, you have your password. Whenever you want to log into your phone, you input your maybe a PIN or password depending on the one you are using. Same goes with your banking app. Same goes with your most time. I think WhatsApp now has incorporated the same thing as well, where maybe at intervals you can have a pop-up on your screen asking you to enter your 6-digit code or something like that. Also, in the corporate world where you have employee records and medical files and whatever world, these most of these things are protected maybe by using password or any protective mechanism that they can deploy. Because one thing that is sure, if any of these things, okay, imagine, just take for an instance that you have your phone and someone else, and all of a sudden you lose your phone, and then maybe the person that picked up your phone was able to bypass your password, maybe I don't know, guessing or however thing they were able to break your phone, jailbreak or whatever means they use. So at that moment, you discover that confidentiality has been broken because now the person that is not supposed to have access to your phone has already been able to gain access to your phone. You get? So let's look at a real world example with respect to this confidentiality. Now, in 2023, right, a, co- a company a company called 23andMe. I think it's a biotech company or something like that, right? I think it's a biotech company, yeah. So their system was compromised. Attackers were able to gain access to their customer accounts. You can search about it at 23andMe, a security event that happened around 2023. So the attacker was able to compromise their customers' accounts using stolen credentials and expose personal and genetic information belonging to millions of users. I think it was about 197 millions of users that they were able to have access to their information or something like that. So when this kind of scenario now, you can already see that there is a breach of data, right? Because these guys are not even supposed to have access. I think this attack was actually attributed to Black Cats, and I think and one other one as well. But I think that's what when I read about it. So these kind of events that happen now, you already see that there is already the confidentiality there has been compromised because now information that is not supposed to be made public or to the that is supposed to remain confidential has been compromised. I don't. You can see these are a biotech company, so genetic information is belonging. I mean, imagine the kind of data and information that these guys have already gotten on their hand just because someone, customers, login information, say stolen credentials, they were able to get it and log into their system and have access to this. And by the time so long as they have been able to do this, you don't even know the other ones, literal movements or whatever thing they did, right? So confidentiality, whenever you hear about it, just make it its core purpose is to make sure that it's only the right person that is supposed to have access to that thing that has access to it. Whenever any other person that is not supposed to have access to that thing gains access to that thing, that means confidentiality has been broken. So you also have some key protection mechanisms that we can deploy on the confidentiality level. That's where you have things like password, multi-factor authentication. You have as encryption. So these are several security protocols that can be implemented on this. There are many others. It's not limited to these guys that is listed here. There is also more to others if you like. But we are not going into it in depth today, right? Okay. So let's look at the second one. So the second one is integrity. That's the I, right? So what is this guy talking about? Whenever you hear about integrity in the cybersecurity space, integrity has one thing. You just make sure that okay, when I am imagine, okay, let me assume that let me check who let me just use one person here let me look up for a name. Okay, imagine that me and Taiwo, right? We are chatting, right? Okay, maybe we are chatting via WhatsApp, and probably the network we are using we are using a public Wi-Fi to do the chat, right? And I know that WhatsApp supports end-to-end encryption, but sometimes security can be breached, right? But especially when you're using public network and all this. And something happened. That means there was someone in that same network is a threat, or let me say a hacker, or whatever word you want to use for it. So, and the person is listening to the conversation. So that means he's seeing the whole traffic going through that network. Now the person can actually have access in terms of modifying. Maybe I sent my account details to Taiwo to transfer money via WhatsApp, and the guy on that network was able to capture that traffic. And when he captured this, that means he can actually modify it if like depending on his level of access in terms of the activity. So if he's able to modify that message and probably now put his own instead of the one I actually sent, and now sent it to Taiwo, right? So that means that instead of Taiwo now sending me the money, because he will see the account and actually is everything is coming from me, but without knowing that the data has been tampered in between, right? So that's what integrity talks about. So integrity makes sure that okay, that the data I actually sent is what gets to the end user. End-to-end communication is encrypted. So whenever the data has been tampered with, altered, integrity has been broken. That's where you hear something about hashes, and we're not going to it. Hashing, hashing algorithms and other mechanisms as well. So you see where all these things are being put in place. So take for an instance now. So I think the one I tried out myself is using there is this bank we use whenever if you are into pen testing. So at Vom Bank, yeah, that's Vom Bank. So I did that one. I was just using it to play around, right? So just modifying, doing transactions, then using my Bob suit to listen to it and modify the whatever thing I need to modify, just to tamper the whole data and see how the whole workflow goes. So that's the kind of solution that you can try it out if you already if you understand what I'm saying. So but imagine integrity. Whenever you hear about this guy, its core purpose is to make sure that data that is sent arrives exactly as it is to the end user, right? So no modification, nothing. It is exactly and the same input that comes out at the output. So have things like bank balance changed illegally. So this is exactly what I was able to experiment on the phone bank, right? So where you can actually transact and monitor the transaction, modify the transaction at the back end, and alter the whole thing. So okay, and this one I think we'll be able to relate to this one. So literally every of us here passed through school. Imagine that your result, you did well in your school. In fact, you are even keeping record of your whole scores and grades in school, and all of a sudden, when the whole thing now comes out, you are seeing what you have recorded yourself is no longer what you are seeing on the dashboard where it's pasted. What do you think will happen? That means someone have tampered with the result, the actual result, before it's being pasted. So that means integrity of that result has been compromised. Maybe someone bought your result or mistake or whatever thing that might happen, right? So fake information being injected. So let's just look at one real world example I will give on this one is okay. There is the solar wind attack. I don't know how many of us here know about solar wind. So yeah, it's a company that I think they're into software or something like that. So they had an attack in 2020. So what was this attack all about? So the attack was actually so they pushed out a legitimate software update, right? So the update was legit, but something happened. It now happened that I don't really know. I don't really understand the whole scenario or how the threat actor was able to gain access to that. But the attacker secretly modified the legitimate software update distributed by SolarWind themselves. And guess what? Organizations downloaded what they believed was trusted software, but it has already been altered before delivery. So I think that caused a whole lot of data breaches too, because this one now is a third party chain event, right? So it's actually where I think if you have already, I don't know how in depth most of us have already gone. You have dealt with what we call third party chain attack or something like that. I think that's the word for it. So, but that's where you talk about okay, third party chain management. How because now you are not just protecting yourself against yourself, even those you are interacting with, your friends, the vendors that you manage with, how protected are they? Because they can also be the loophole to for attackers to get to you as well, because they can actually tamper with the integrity of whatever they are delivering to you, and then that will become the gateway they need to actually get to you. So key protections whenever it comes to hash integrity, right? So you have things like hashing, access control, logging, monitoring, very necessary, very necessary. That's why sometimes I think let me give you another instance as well. Most of us here that if you download some softwares online, you see discover that when downloading these things, they will give you more like a hash code, maybe using a as char 256 or MD5 or whichever one. So they will give you this thing as download. So when you finish downloading those softwares, if you know how to use it, you can just go to that your downloads, prompting your PowerShell and use the get hash this thing to actually verify that okay, the hash algorithm of what I downloaded matches exactly with what the vendor or the person where I downloaded that software from. So to make sure that the integrity has not been compromised. So those are also part of the things that they put in place, to protect this integrity. Then let's talking about the third one, which is availability. This is as much as it might look as if it doesn't have any security measure, but this guy is one of the most things that companies will pay heavily for. So availability. Imagine that you opened your banking app, right? And all of a sudden you want to do a transaction. In fact, you are in a hot seat or a hot zone, and you needed to pay for something, and all of a sudden your whole banking app, Access Bank, UBA, OPay, whatever thing you are using, is not working, and that's probably the only place you have the money. What kind of frustration will you feel at that moment? So availability on its own is a hot case, because imagine, okay, we all use WhatsApp here. We all use probably Gmail, Outlook, or whichever one. Most of us use Netflix. So imagine all these services now, or the WhatsApp, all of a sudden, WhatsApp is no longer reachable. You open your WhatsApp and probably it's telling you 404 error or whatever error that it wants to give you, because probably something has happened and the server is down, right? So availability is a very critical service. Systems and services should be accessible whenever needed, right? So in as much as security is a whole bunch of things, every organization also, as much as they want security, they also want to balance it with the availability, because as much as I want to secure my system, I also want my system to be accessible as at when needed, right? So availability is a very important factor in cybersecurity, because it's in fact, I would say it's more like one of the leading handheads, right? Because it portrays a whole lot. Imagine just like the instance I have given. Imagine a hospital system becoming unavailable, so you can't even access their services again, or a website that you normally visit going down. So it's a critical service that organizations will always want to keep up. So let's look at one instance that happened in terms of availability. So there is a hospital. I think this attack happened in 2024. That is okay. No, it's still early. It's a Change Healthcare cyber attack that happened. So what happened to this healthcare? It was in USA, United States. They were hit by a ransomware attack, which disrupted the whole healthcare payment system across the United States. Hospitals, pharmacies, healthcare providers experienced a significant service interruption. Why? Because people can no longer do what they normally do on a daily basis. So that means service cannot go. They cannot get service. I mean, the whole when we are. I believe all of us here understand what ransomware is and how it can impair business or service delivery. So imagine that kind of a thing hitting hitting a hospital. I mean, just create the scenario in your head, or even that kind of a thing hitting a government or any agency that is already big and have a whole lot of vendors or people, customers, clients using their products, and see how that kind of thing can affect the both the people and even the owners of the business. So these are under availability is where you start having attacks like DOS, double DOS, ransomware, because these are attacks that actually tend to cripple the service. DOS is when they are DOS, distributed denial of service, is when more like, I don't know, the person might use a ping of death or whichever one they want to use, but you're just trying to send traffic, a whole bunch of traffic to that system, to that server or system, just to make sure that the memory is exhausted and the system cannot handle any other request. So denying all legitimate requests. The same thing with double DOS. So this one is now where you have more like a botnet from all over, maybe system that has already been compromised, now being used as botnets to send traffic to that server to take it down. So all of them, it just aims at taking that server down, disrupting the service, and making it unavailable for the right users. So whatever you hear about about availability, so its aim is just make sure that the service that are needed is always available whenever it is needed. You get. So key protections that you can have whenever you're talking about availability, you have the things like backup, you have redundancy. I think there are some security vendors now have incorporated this double DOS attack protect as well. I think I saw it in Cloudflare as well, and some other ones as well. So monitoring and all those ones. So they are very, very necessary if you want to maintain the availability of any business or any server or system that you are protecting. So in as much as you are taking those measures, security in depth and all those things, trying to build so that nobody will compromise your system, the availability of that system also matters, because you have to make sure that, okay, the security does not impair the availability of that system, right? So it's very, very crucial. So security is not just about protecting data and system, but the system must also remain accessible. Get. So it's very crucial. Then I think why does all these things matter? Almost every cyber attack affects at least one part of the CIA triad. Just like I've given the examples, you see, when I talk about data breaches, talk about tampering, talk about ransomware DOS attack, I mean, I've already given you the whole picture and the whole scenario as well. Talk about all those things, unauthorized access, so malicious modifications of record files, blocking systems, flooding the server with denied access, and all those things. So, let me tell you something. Every single attack you hear today, only there are only types of there are three attacks I will just give you. Data breach, so an attack can either be that data has been breached, an attack can either be that the data has been tampered or destroyed, or then talk about this service not available. So any single attack you can hear of in the world today must revolve within these three. It cannot pass it. Because at the end of the day, this is what it boils down to, right? Called the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability. So why it matters is because if any of these guys fails, then there is a serious problem. Very serious problem, honestly. So cybersecurity isn't just about hacking. It's about protecting information, ensuring trust, and keeping systems running. And it all starts with the CIA triad. So understanding this foundation, actually, as a cybersecurity analyst or someone that is venturing into the field or someone that's already into the field, is very, very crucial, because when you understand this, then you can actually understand, okay, when you now see a trail of events happening, then you can actually be able to point it down to the root and identify it. And if you can be able to identify it and trace it down to the root, then the mitigation already, for you to identify it down to that place, that means you already know how to mitigate those things, right? So it's very, very essential for us to have a granular or understanding of this concept, because it will help us a lot, both in the cybersecurity field as well. So I'll just leave it at this point. So just a closing one. The CIA triad isn't just a theory taught in cybersecurity classes. Every major incident we hear about usually affects one or more of these three principles. That's the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So I hope I've been able to enlighten us on this concept. And um, uh, okay, let me leave the floor for anyone that has any question or maybe contribution at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the session today. We really enjoyed, or let me say, I really enjoyed the session. It was a very detailed one. So, just like you said, do we have anybody that has a question for him to answer or a suggestion? Okay, if we don't have anyone, that means understood and enjoyed what our host said. So on behalf of DIG Sec community, thank you once again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at the end of our next session. Until then, we should all stay safe and try to always protect